Hey, everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 70 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show.
You can practice anything but
That's what this episode is about. Breath, breathing, oxygen, the importance of it. So today's episode is kind of sticking to the theme of what I told you guys that I was looking to do with the past few interviews. I think a lot of times in not just jiu-jitsu podcasts, but in every podcast, especially podcasts that say that they are for educational purposes. For me, I always say that we're here to help you train jiu-jitsu more efficiently and effectively. Then what happens is you don't get as many listeners as you want, and you say, hey, well, I need more listeners. I am going to do the podcast version of Selling Out and only focus on trying to interview big name people. And interviewing big name people can be really fun, and it can be exciting, and it can make you feel really good. You can interview so many big name people in the jiu-jitsu community as competitors. I think a lot of people can do that. That can be their focus, and that's totally okay. But something interesting, an interesting question was posed to me a little more than a month ago. And the question is always, if you could do anything with no repercussion of failure, what would you do? Now, the interesting question, the question that I got was, what if you were guaranteed to fail? What would you do? And it's a really interesting question from the thought process of this. A lot of times we focus so much on having a ton of listeners to our podcast. And this is the example that I'm giving because it is what I've been dealing with. We focus so much on that. Oh man, I want to have so many listeners. I want to have 1 million listeners on my Jiu-Jitsu podcast, that we forget why we started it. What the reason is that we do this. I can't stress this enough. Jiu-Jitsu is not the business to get into if your goal is to make a ton of money. If that is your end goal, if that is your number one thing, that is what success is for you. Jiu-Jitsu podcast is the same way. Jiu-Jitsu production company is the same way. That's not being said that you can't make money from those, and you can't make a lot of money from those. I'm not going to say that. But if that is your primary goal, then you probably shouldn't be focused on jiu-jitsu. Now, if your goal is to learn to train jiu-jitsu more efficiently and effectively, like mine is, looking for the biggest names in jiu-jitsu podcasting isn't always necessarily the way I should go about it. And so just for me, I've kind of changed my method on the people that I've been trying to get on the show and the things that we talk about on the show. I've really been looking for people that maybe you haven't heard of. And the goal is that eventually the people that listen to this show, whether it be 10 people or whether it be 10,000, that they will become conditioned to say, hey, I don't know who this guy is that Josh is having on the show. That is exciting to me. Anytime he has somebody I've never heard of, they offer such a unique perspective on jiu-jitsu. And that's what's going to hopefully happen for you guys today. I got a ton of feedback from the last few episodes that we've done, interviewing guys that aren't very heard of, but offer really amazing perspectives on things. And today is no different. Today I get to interview Miles Lukas. I'll tell you a really abridged version of how Miles and I met last week. I have a new ad on my Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu. It's a new Facebook ad. And so anytime you post an ad telling people that they can simplify jiu-jitsu, that you can make jiu-jitsu more efficient and effective, people are going to have some fun responses. People are going to insult you. People are going to do all sorts of things. Well, Miles commented on my video and said something along the lines of, well, I would rather just roll with you to know if you train jiu-jitsu efficiently and effectively, or something along those lines. And he was obviously poking a little bit of fun at me, as the kids say. I don't think any kids say that. I'm probably the only person who uses that uses that verbiage. But anyway, he's making a joke with me, and I respond with, man, if you're ever in St. Louis, I would be happy to roll with you. And that is just how I left it. Well, the funny thing is, Miles then sends me a message. He goes, dude, you're from St. Louis. I'm from St. Louis. And we got to talking. And it's a very random way to meet somebody, you know, through apparently I'm putting out Facebook ads to make friends. But Miles has a really unique focus. He has a unique focal point of his jiu-jitsu, and it is breathing. So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with who Wim Hof is and the Wim Hof method. And Miles is certified. He's a certified teacher in the Wim Hof method and in the breathing exercises that come with it. Now, what he has done, he's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. What he has done is he has connected the two. He has created a breathing for jiu-jitsu. And I will be tagging everything in the description so you guys can be sure to check it out. But it's really cool that he is focused on something different, focused on something that not everybody is focused on, that being breathing for jiu-jitsu. You hear people say it all the time. Yeah, I need to focus on breathing. I always hold my breath in training. Well, he talks to us about the different types of breathing that there are. I thought there was only in and out, but apparently there's a lot more to that. And the whole time you will find yourself in this episode just being conscious of your breath. I've noticed it just the last few times I've rolled since recording this episode. I'm just being really conscious. I don't have any idea on how I should be breathing, but I'm really conscious of it. And it's kind of a fun little thing that you'll notice throughout the whole episode. You're going to just be very focused on breathing. And without further ado, let's jump right into this episode. All right, Miles, how are you doing today?
Amazing. It's a beautiful day in sunny Southern California.
Yeah, before we got on, I was explaining that it was almost like you were bragging by being outside during this podcast. You know, for me, I think it was 30 last night. I don't know what it is right now, but it's still just a little too cold for me. I'm not down for it. Just kind of off the top, I had a thought of where I wanted to start. I was listening to some stuff, some different interviews that you did, and I just was curious about something. And so I wanted to start with this because I thought it might be fun. So as much
roll, brother.
Detail,
it's nice to be here.
As much detail as you are willing to give, could you tell us the story of you getting arrested and escaping from police custody?
Oh my God, that's that's an amazing story.
It's a place to start too, right?
Wow. Yes. Probably maybe one of my favorite adventures. It's about a 10-minute story.
Okay. I think people are going to be excited about it. And I want to hear
it. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It was so fun to connect with you over Facebook, and that you had an ad for the product that you're selling that looks awesome, and it intrigued me enough that I had a couple of drinks, and I sort of talked shit on your ad, right? I'm like, oh yeah, show me, let's roll and prove it. But I love the way that you put it, because I think a similar way, and that's what kind of the ad jumped out at me for. Is there's a lot of complexities in jiu-jitsu, and simplifying jiu-jitsu, man, allows you to progress so much faster, and it's very possible. And people sort of lose that when you see all these pre-made, everybody allowing each other to do spinning moves on Instagram. You know?
Yes.
And so I thought that was really cool. And then to connect, and then to know we had some friends in common, and you live where I grew up, and I can't wait to see you guys, really soon. So this is just, I'm absolutely thrilled to be talking to you and to meet like we did. And that's really funny that connecting in that way. It's just the world's changing, and
It
so it's
really
awesome.
is.
Yeah, so cool. So so a little about escaping police custody. This was amazing. I went to I lived in Charleston, South Carolina. I was going to school. Great place to go to school. And we lived on sort of the main drag. It was called King Street. And we would used to hang out kind of on top of the buildings, a few stories up, not too far, nothing too dangerous. And I had a pretty mild group of friends. I mean, we had a lot of fun with ourselves, but we were definitely not getting into fights or anything like that. I mean, we were just a jolly, super jolly group. And so the police came up and thought that we were a rowdy group, and they needed to kind of talk trash. And so we were like, whatever. We just sort of went inside as they came around back to this deck. And they took some of our stuff. They took a cooler, a portable phone. Do you remember when phones were still connected to the house?
Yes.
They took one of those and they put it in the trunk. And I decided, I was a little bit younger these days. I'm in my 20s, and after a few Colt 45 or King Cobras, I thought it would be a great idea to go talk to the cop. And I was like, I'll straighten this out right now, says King Cobra. And I go downstairs, and that's when I met Officer Bernard for the first time. He was a Southern distinguished black gentleman with gold glasses and a gold tooth to match. And he as he was putting the stuff in his trunk, he was closing the trunk. I put my hand on the trunk, probably not the best idea, and I put my hand on his shoulder. And that was the worst idea ever. To all your listeners, to everybody, do not touch police officers. Just don't touch them. They don't like to be touched. That is assault, brother.
That's assault, brother.
you don't want any of that. And so he quickly grabbed me, threw my arm behind my back, and like mashed me up against the car, and kind of was banging my head on the car a bit. And he asked for my ID, I think, and I pulled it out and showed it to him or handed it to him. And one of his crucial mistakes was he put it back in my pocket. So I had everything that I needed. And then he throws me into the cop car, handcuffs me, hands behind my back, throws me into the cop car. This is really funny that we're bringing up this story out of the gate. I'm sorry if it runs long. Please stop me.
It's very typical that I interview a guy from St. Louis, and the first story we get into is escaping police custody. That is it's pretty common that is the start of most St. Louis interviews. But continue.
Amazing. Well, and hopefully your viewers, your listeners, your followers will learn some techniques that we could explore during this escape. So technique number one, I'm handcuffed with my hands behind my back. Now, if you're with a little bit of practice, you're able to move your arms down below your butt and pull the handcuffs around to the front. I did have to kick off my running shoes and then put them back, bring my hands around to the front and then tie my shoes back up. And meanwhile, Officer Bernard was going to and from the car and to the other side of the street, sort of where the party was happening. And I said to myself, man, I started messing around in the car, and I felt pretty confident, because I really didn't do anything too wrong. So I wasn't like, I kind of wanted to get out of there. And I realized his critical mistake number two is he left the window lock off. So I was able to roll down the window. Now, in retrospect, the ideal technique would have been to reach outside the window and open up the car door. That's the proper Henry Gracie might say, that would be the proper technique. But in the midst of everything, I decided to dive out of the window,
which is the cooler technique. It is the flying armbar, if you will, of escaping police custody is diving out the window, when the closed guard armbar is reaching over and opening the other side of the door.
I love how we're tying this.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, my legs were still caught in the window as my head and arms were sort of like on the concrete, and there were a lot of people on this road. This is the main drag, and they were rooting me on because they saw what was going on, and they one of the people right next to me yelled, "He's still not looking. Go, go, go." And so I tore my pants somehow. They were somehow attached in the window. I tore my jeans and got out of the window. The handcuffs are in front of me. I see a sidewalk full of people that I can dodge in and out, and I just started making my move. And a technique that you could learn from this is and when your hands are together, you can't run like this, right? So you have to run side to side like you're rowing. That helped with the balance a little bit and the
Okay.
speed, I think. Yeah. So I'm going side to side. I'm dodging in and out of the people, and I thought I need to get off the main drag. So I hang a right into an alley. I lived around there. I knew the place well, and I had to figure out what to do. So the cops were definitely on my tail at this point, and I thought if I could jump in some bushes, I could, I was looking for some things, and then I saw these two Southern belles, these gorgeous blonde gals. And I said, hey, could you guys, if I backtrack 2 blocks on the parallel street, I would be able to get to where my girlfriend's place was at the time. And so I was like, hey, can you guys walk with me? And then the first girl looked at me and saw the handcuffs, in front, and said, you are a criminal. She called me a fugitive. You are a fugitive. She said, we will not walk with you. And then the other gal, they were coming out of the bar, so they were in a good mood. And the other gal said, my Jeep is right there. Where do you want to go?
Oh my
like,
goodness. That is mistake
God.
1 for her. That
for taking me.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I see the fugitive. Come on, my car's right over here.
Hey, I was a young college fella, gentleman, dressed with I had a cross colors blue St. Louis hat on, of all things, light
Dude,
blue.
that was what it was. That was what it was. That's what got you in the Jeep.
That's right. She said, this is a good Midwestern boy that's, couldn't do no harm. I'm sure whatever he did was forgivable. So I literally dive in the back of her Jeep. The top's off the Jeep. I dive in the back of her Jeep. She has like a Mexican blanket under there, and I pull the blanket over my head. And so I'm just looking with like a little hump out of the blanket. And she backs up. As she backs up, sure enough, the cops come around the corner into the alley, and I just see them as they come in, and then we go the other way, and that was it. So I escaped a little bit. There's a little bit more to the story, and things happen, but I got away, and it was incredible. Yeah, I had the handcuffs.
That's a super interesting story, and that is. From what I heard, your reasoning behind going into stunt school. Am I correct with that?
How funny. Yeah. So what am I supposed to do with that skill? Like I thought of that as a skill, right? I escaped the cops. They couldn't get me, and the best thing I could think to do was, put this on the silver screen as somebody else, of course, because I'm just the stunt man, right? So I dropped out of college. I was working. I saved up all my money, saved up a few $1,000s, and went to Kahana's stunt school in Orlando, Florida. And a magic time and place in the swamps of Orlando. He made sure that his stunt school was far enough away that he could blow up cars and shoot machine guns and stuff, and nobody would bother him. And he was amazing. And he was Charles Bronson's stunt double for 20 years.
Really?
So Kahana was the real deal. He was, from the face, he didn't look like Charles Bronson, but from the side, he looked just like him, right?
Okay.
So he was amazing. He showed us the first day, and this goes back to jiu-jitsu a little bit with proper technique of falling, because I learned a lot about falling in stunt school. Jiu-jitsu, we teach people falling all the time, and sometimes we don't emphasize like how important it is. But what he could do is he could do a forward roll onto the concrete and sort of and dissipate the impact with his elbows. And he was 70 years old. Ooh. And he showed us the first day. He just did a forward roll, whap, and then stood back up. And we were all like, whoa, what are we going to be doing this? This is going to be dangerous. But with the right technique, dissipating the impact, he did also start drinking around 3 o'clock every day. I don't know if that's, yeah.
You know what? That probably makes you immune to falling. I think it makes it a little easier to fall, but a little easier to take the bump too.
He was good at taking the bumps for sure.
How long was stunt school?
So it was, I want to say 6 weeks. And then we stayed living there for a little bit longer to go do some like skydiving stuff and kind of crazy stuff. The goal was to get on the stunt show in Universal Studios or Disney or something like that. And I didn't end up doing it. And I found out they only made I don't even know if they were making $12 an hour. And I was like, ooh, yeah, for stunts all day long, like for sure they were getting hurt, you know? And so, yeah, I sort of, I realized the computers sort of took over stunt work, and it was time for me to focus more on the computer, the technical aspect of it. So I didn't follow through, but when I did come back to Charleston to visit my friends again and to see everybody, my one of my favorite things to do was when there were lines of people outside the bar, and the streets were slow, you know, it's 25 miles an hour, maybe 20 miles an hour. I would one of my best techniques that I learned at stunt school was getting hit by cars. I was super good at it. You kind of you roll on it. You basically do a front roll. You go to the front of the car and you do a front roll off the corner. And so as long as you don't hit your back on the windshield and break the windshield, everything's good.
Uh-huh.
and you flail. That's the fun thing about these type of falls we do in stunt work too, is that you get to flail and yell. So you make it look bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when we would jump out of buildings, we did like 30 feet. We would do like 3-story buildings and stuff. And but that's the funny part is you're like, so I would get hit by a car and like, blah, and I yell and kind of land, and then everyone, you know, in the line would be like, oh my god, and my friends would be like either embarrassed or think it was the greatest thing ever, and then, you know, the people in the car would be freaked out and stuff. But you know, luckily there was no social media back then, so it was something I could continuously do without reprimand.
Did you ever have people get mad at you for running out in front of traffic and getting hit by their car?
It was typically strangers, or if it was like young people in the car that I knew, you know, that didn't, and the car was moving very slow. So they, you know, they kind of just didn't know what happened. They didn't really think that they hit me, and they're probably thinking in their head like, well, I couldn't have hit him as hard as he rolled on top of the hood and flailed, you know. It probably just confused them. So no, I never really had any trouble with people getting mad.
See, now like people are going to be texting when you do that. They may hit the gas a little hard. You may be in trouble with it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And videotaping, and it'll be, yeah, no, you can't. Those days, those mobile video days were good times.
And so, you know, we've touched on just a few things that you've done. You're an escaped convict, and you are you're doing
Check
stunt
my
school.
warrants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so this was all just a trap to you know, for that officer to get you again. You know, he was trying to get you on tape. This whole podcast is a lie. But
Officer Bernard's listening, huh?
He got you, man. What is
shout out to Officer Bernard.
What got you into jiu-jitsu?
So, you know, we have a similar acquaintance, Todd Murphy. He was my best friend growing up. We both went to Crossroads on De Bolivar in U City. So Crossroads, the school, not the drug rehab, because there's also that drug rehab. And we started watching UFCs right in high school, and we would have a few beers, and we would just take it outside and fight each other and make up moves until somebody got hit in the nuts, and then it was over, and we would go back in. And so he started pro fighting, I think, probably my first year. It might have been my first year out of school, and he had about 9 pro fights. So I that got me into jiu-jitsu. I mean, just the UFC and the love of it, and Rickson Gracie, and all the great stuff he taught us. Like one of my favorite things, because I'm teaching a class right now about the evolution of jiu-jitsu. And so I'm creating this class right now. And my favorite thing that Rickson Gracie taught us is that ponytails can also be a handlebar.
Yes.
So
yes. It can be a lapel grip almost, you know?
Yeah, a very brutal one. It's very tough to get away from a good ponytail hold. So that's an important technique he taught us. And I'm including that in my workshop.
I like it.
Yeah. But then, so ever since then, so I started probably 99, and then, you know, on and off, all over South Carolina. I did it a bit under Jerry Brewer, Charleston Jiu-Jitsu under Rickson Gracie, which is amazing. Such a great place to start. Master Jerry Brewer still doing it, and one of the greatest people I ever met, because, you know, I just have so much love for the way that he portrayed jiu-jitsu, because the camaraderie and you know, just the way he was perfect, exactly how you'd want your first jiu-jitsu instructor. And then I moved on to Philadelphia, Phil Milgarise, and still under Helson, and then San Diego, and then kind of all over, back up to the Bay Area, and now we're back in San Diego.
And so what was kind of your intention with doing jiu-jitsu? Obviously, you started because, you guys were watching you're watching fighting. Was there ever any goal of jiu-jitsu for you? Was there ever any, oh, I want to use jiu-jitsu to accomplish this or to do this?
Well, so when we started it, it was there weren't really. I started. It's kind of it was an obscure sport at the time, and kind of an obscure town, right? Charleston, South Carolina. There wasn't a lot of jujitsu for sure, but in general, the only tournaments there were no gi grappling tournaments.
Hmm.
That's it, and everybody would come from Navy guys, military guys, Krav Maga, whoever just thought thought that their martial art was going to do well in this, then they would come. And it was very obvious that jiu-jitsu absolutely smashed them. I mean,
Hmm.
nobody had anything that meant anything compared to our I had like 2 months of jiu-jitsu at the first time I did a tournament. And so I think we felt like we were a part of this sort of secret martial art that was like that when you learn secrets, or you feel like they're secrets, either it's tough not to share. Do you know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's tough because you have this drive that you're like, man, jiu-jitsu helps people in so many ways. It helps people with their confidence big time. I think confidence is probably number one. It just helps you how you stand and walk and talk and feel good, and how you deal with different situations. And so I think my goal with jiu-jitsu was to spread it, that I had found something really special, and if I could just share it with as many people as possible, and learn how to defend myself against somebody bigger. So I have I focus the majority of my game around creating an autopilot. What happens when you get hit in the head? You don't even know what happened. How did you
Hmm.
perform? What are these automatic moves that you do? And how do you do well against somebody who is significantly bigger than you? And I think that's a wonderful lifelong quest, because it means that these techniques will work for anybody at any size. And
Hmm.
yeah, those are my goals: create the autopilot, being able to go against big guys, and just spread the message of confidence and all this stuff.
If we were looking at what you would do to create, or just a basic idea of what you would do to create the autopilot, what would that be? How would you go about that?
Ooh, so what a great question. Simplicity. If you have to make it simple. So I also teach a breathwork for jiu-jitsu class. And believe me when I say the breath patterns that we use and the stuff that we focus on is like dead simple. Because if it's not simple, then it's not in your autopilot. You can't go through a sequence of complex moves or steps in your autopilot. So what I focus on are the principles. So if you're passing someone's guard, for instance, we'll just use an example. One of my favorite principles is, if you control their top leg, and I took a lot of this from Marcelo Garcia. So I was on his online school for a long time,
Hmm.
and if you control their top leg, doesn't matter. Push it, pull it, pin it. It doesn't really matter. And then if they have a good knee shield, and you have to force one of them to be the top leg, you can do that too. But if you have one singular focus, which is controlling the top leg, then that's in your autopilot, because
Hmm.
that's easy enough to sort of ingrain. And of course, uh, uh, performing in these tasks at full speed as often as possible are going to ingrain that autopilot.
Hmm.
But simplicity is definitely key, and then principles over steps, because that one principle will, if you look at all these ways to pass guard, well, there is 10,000 steps if you added them all together or something. But you don't need to remember all that if you got clocked in the head, and you only have, grab the knee, grab the shin, grab, pin, push. None of it matters. Control the top leg.
Uh-huh. And you use that autopilot on if you get hit in the head, but you go into autopilot when you compete a lot of times, just because of the stress and the speed of competition. I don't know what my opponent is going to do. I need simplicity to be able to say, this is paramount. Would you agree with that?
Big time. Yes, 100%. And I do say that, clocked in the head. And what I mean is, the competition feels like, it almost feels like you're in a cloud and it just goes by super fast, and you're not fully, sometimes it's hard to be fully connected with it. And it is, and I've had a friend one time in one of the fight to wins, he got kneed in the head, which happens in the middle of the match. And he didn't essentially wake up. He had bought his whole team dinner that night, and realized, like, and kind of came to afterwards, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
our brains are weird things, and autopilot is totally real. You know, if stuff happens to people and they have to look at the video to see what they did. And yeah, so just stress in general can turn on that fighter. It's really when we go in that sympathetic fight or flight state, you know. And how we perform there. What are our natural instincts? Well, let's mold our natural instincts if we can, you know.
Besides overcomplication, would you believe that there is any other mistake that is commonly made that messes with the autopilot idea?
100%. The biggest common mistake, and I see this in all the jiu-jitsu groups. New guys, I love jiu-jitsu. I just started. What protein powder should I use? Dude, shut your brain that way. That has nothing to do with anything. Breath work is number one. And I got to train with Rickson Gracie, and I got to talk to Rickson Gracie about jiu-jitsu breath work, about the Wim Hof method, everything. And when he teaches a class, for instance, I'm a member of his online school. His first class, he's not giving you this curriculum that wants you to, like, stay engaged. Right? Like, he's not giving you a curriculum that he thinks, well, if we give him a little bit of the good stuff here, that'll keep him in. Kind of like what Henner and Huron do. Like, they were doing an amazing job of really sort of keeping people engaged and creating a awesome program. Rickson's like, no, I have the recipe, and if you want the recipe, this is it. And his first class is breath work, and class number 1 is breathing with your lower belly. That's the whole class. Learn how to breathe with your lower belly. It takes a little bit of time because not everybody can do it that well. But so one of the problems that people have is your mental acuity starts to diminish when you've been holding your breath, or if you're not breathing right. And we've all been there where we're on the bottom and we're just like a step behind. Like, man, I know how to get out of this stuff, but this guy on top of me, I can't keep up with his steps. He just keeps moving a step ahead of me, and I can never keep up. And it's very likely that if you're, you know, of even experience with this person, it's very likely that your mental acuity is just drained. Yeah. So Rickson teaches a way to breathe that you can regain mental acuity if you've been holding your breath, or if you've just sort of taken a long sprint, or you know, really tried to sweep somebody and you kind of got your breath pattern out of whack. So breath work.
Okay, so you're doing, you know, in breath work.
Yeah.
I guess I'll probably ask a deeper question before we go into the basics, just because this is what is on the top of my mind. But
go for it,
when
Josh.
you're rolling and you're doing breath work, you're focused on, and we'll define that in a second. But when you're doing breath work, is breathing your focal point? Is that what you are thinking about in your grappling, or have you practiced your breath work to where that is something you no longer have to think about, or maybe occasionally have to remind yourself about?
Yes. So that's the deal. We have to make, I would use 3 breath patterns potentially in a match, and that's it. And so we have to make it so simple that we get it into our autopilot, that it's ingrained. But then we also have to be able to recover if we've made a mistake. So that's one of the things that practices often, I think, just practices in general often forget about. Well, like, lots of yoga tells you, well, you need to breathe like this. Okay, well, what happens if I was sprinting and I just held my breath because I had to just push this monster over? Yeah. And now I am totally like I'm dizzy. I have mental acuity gone and I am dizzy. What do I do then? Well, almost no. Rickson Gracie is the only person I've ever heard that has a good solution for that. And I've studied as many. I've studied as many breath works as I can get my hands on. And could I share that with you guys right now?
Of course.
Something so simple.
Love that.
Amazing. Oh shoot, Google's talking to me. So something so simple that you can do. We can breathe using 2 processes. We can expand and we can contract. Both take a similar amount of energy, I think. But what Rickson promotes is breathing only using contraction. So if you guys could try this with me right now, if you could try this with me. So just we got to find the neutral zone. So take a breath in let go to where you're nice and relaxed. Right there. That's the neutral zone. You have about 60% above, 40% below, and that neutral zone changes depending on how you're rolled up. I actually heard you're really good from Todd was telling me how you are very tough from the bottom and getting out of stuff. And he said he couldn't stack you. He said he could stack anybody, but you had some moves that made you unstackable, which is very cool. But so in that case, if you're getting stacked, your neutral zone is a little bit different, and you have to be aware of that. Okay, but so now we found the neutral zone. Now just focus on pushing out. And again, there's not much air left in there. So don't breathe any air in. You can uncurl your spine a little bit to create some suction. And then that, so as you breathe out, and you'll notice that uncurling of your spine creates this vacuum. So you can create a vacuum, and check it out. So let's just say I hold my breath because my opponent is 6'10", 250, and I swept him. Awesome. I'm feeling awesome. I just realized I'm still holding my breath. You got to dump CO2 as quickly as possible. Use the fact that we can create a vacuum to bring the air back in and just efficiently just dump CO2 until you can regain mental acuity.
That is, and so regaining mental acuity, is that a point that you can recognize with yourself? Okay, I'm here again, I'm centered again, I'm present again, whatever.
Yes, it is. It's a point mentally, but then also you can test it by changing your breath pattern. So another breath pattern you could do is we need to be calm when we're doing this stuff. So breathing in through your nose creates more nitrogen, does some cool benefits by helping make you calm. So if you can breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth around the neutral zone. So I used to call it 60-40, right? Because let's say the neutral zone is 50%. We know it moves all the time, but let's say it's at 50. And so you breathe into 60, out to 40 through your mouth. And then even 70-30. And so if you can breathe that, and then you can feel that you don't have mental acuity losses again, then I would say you're recovered enough to sort of move on. And then you can disregard your breathing again, if you'd like to. And then one last thing, just because if people are listening, they're super interested in this, staggering your breath. You've heard all the Gracies do it. Roger Gracie does it in the middle of a match. The cool thing about that is there's a couple of cool things, but when you pierce your lips and push out like that, you can connect to the lowest part of your diaphragm. So you are breathing very deep when you connect to the low part of your diaphragm. And it's something that, again, it's Rickson's number one first thing when you learn jiu-jitsu, class 1, learn to breathe with your lowest part of your diaphragm. And the second thing about that, why it's so cool, is if you don't have a pattern going on, then it can remind you, by adding a pattern, it can remind you that you need to breathe. So you could have been holding your breath. You're focused on everything else because that stuff's more important. And then just throwing a pattern in allows like a little piece of your brain, 10% of your brain, to keep your breath pattern up. So you pick your favorite tune. I for some reason like dun 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 dun. Maybe it's like if I'm coming at the guy dun 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 dun. So I like go. Someone accused me of whistling the other day. They're kind of mad because I was like giving them a good romp, and they thought I was whistling. I'm like, no, I'm just breathing. But that does amazing things. So it staggers your breath. It allows your CO2 levels to raise, to equalize your CO2 levels, to make oxygen more bioavailable and that cool stuff too. But really what the best part about it to me is that it's just a mental cue to make you keep breathing.
That is super interesting. So how long have you been doing a breath work?
So I started the Wim Hof method in 2015, October of 2015, because it was when Wim was live on Joe Rogan's podcast for the first time. And I did the breath work with him. And I think I even had a tournament coming up or something. And I used to get so damn nervous for these tournaments. And I really love visualizing. I'm a big Frank Shamrock fan from back in the day. And one of his things he used to say he would do is go into a sweat lodge and just sit in the sweat lodge and go over every single position 1 billion times. And if I did that, as soon as I start to visualize, the tournament's a month out, as soon as I hit return on the check the boxes and hit return on the tournament, I would get a sick stomach, a feeling of sickness in my stomach. And I really just, it was uncomfortable. It kind of took the fun out of it. And it meant that I couldn't really visualize as much as I wanted because it didn't make me feel good. I lost track of where we were going.
So just just in
Oh,
let's just change it to
when I started breath work.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, go ahead and go finish this, but I do have a question right after it too. So
Okay. Yeah. So I started then. The benefits were apparent immediately. I used to get sick all the time, and I didn't get sick again for a year and a half. Once the day I started the breath work. So I was like, I was so in. I mean, I was doing it by myself, a few months in, and it was a big part of my life ever since.
okay, so we'll go back to that, but back to jujitsu really quick with
Yeah.
that. You're talking about the anxiety of competing and how breath work can help. How would you kind of, like, I guess, how would you verbalize that? How is that?
I love the way you said it, that it can help, because what I've discovered is not only can it help, it can eliminate competition anxiety completely. Is that I know that's kind of a bold statement, but I tested it out myself and I proved it to myself. And so the way it works is, let's just say competition anxiety, the symptoms of competition anxiety. Let me give you my least favorite, or the butterflies in the stomach,
Uh-huh.
gross. It feels like the flu. Uh, the loss of strength, the weakness of strength, the loss of saliva. You couldn't
Uh-huh.
even pull my mouth guard out. The mental acuity, disadvantages. So what is that similar to? Well, it's similar to the flu. It's like being sick is what it is. It's like instant sick. Okay. And so when I learned about the Wim Hof method, and I learned that the guys got injected with an endotoxin and they fought off the symptoms of being sick, essentially didn't have the symptoms, not nearly as bad. A little bit they had them, but basically were good without these symptoms. And I thought, well, that's just like the same stuff that I'm feeling with competition. And so I tried it. And sure enough, all those symptoms will, if you bring your adrenaline up high enough before you get those symptoms, or even while you have those symptoms, they disappear. And and so I started doing like small tournaments, right? I started doing like an in-house tournament. We had a great in-house tournament that was it was no gi, and no weight class, and no belt level. Come as you are, let's see what you got, and so I did that one. I won that one. What? Even my Dave Camarillo is where I got my black belt from. Even he was like, told me I wasn't supposed to beat this one guy or something like this after it happened, and everyone was like, well, what's going on? Like, this isn't, what's happening right now? How can you do this now? And so I even did this in a real public place at one point, just to see if I could really get to that mental state where it's a mechanical. The Wim Hof breath work is mechanical. It's not, it doesn't take mental fortitude to get there. You just create these chemical changes in your body, and mentally you change with your brainwaves change. So then I got invited to do the Fight to Win. Amazing. So I've done a few of the Fight to Wins now, and doing some breath work about a full hour before, 15 minutes beforehand. I do it for a full hour. And when I walk down the walkway of those things, and I've done them in the Bay Area and in San Diego. They're great events here. Seth, I can't speak enough about those events. It's the greatest. You come through the smoke and lasers. The speakers are way too big. Everyone who works there has got to be deaf, because the speakers are way too big for what they got. And the thunderous booming. And I've been a ref at those things too. And I've seen people's faces as they're walking down, and they look terrified. And it looks like it looks like they're going to their last meal or something. I mean, they look really bad. And so it's the anxiety, the competition anxiety is imminent. It seems like there's no way to get around it. But I tell you what, you can look at all of my walkouts. I've walked out of there crystal clear, all my strength, all my confidence, feeling amazing, no nerves, nothing in the belly. I can look in the crowd, I can see people's faces, I can wave to people, and it is wild. I mean, I still do those just because it's hard for me to believe this is real. I still, every time I do these things, like, I think there's no way I'm gonna be. This is crazy, But it happens every time. It doesn't fail. It's without fail. So
That is awesome. That is something that, for me personally, I will definitely put into competition, because that's something I still, having competed since I started jiu-jitsu, so competed the last
yeah,
12 years, still get anxiety before I compete. I still need to get the
It's
first
how we're
match
built.
out of the way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's how we're built. Yes.
And so, so you were saying that you are raising your adrenaline. You're meeting your adrenaline, I guess.
Yes.
So basically, I guess just thinking here, that would probably be the reason that we feel better. Most people that compete, you feel good in your second match, or you feel good in your third match.
I've never really put it together like that, to be honest, the way that you just said that. And that makes a lot of sense, because if we looked at the charts of the blood work of the guys that did the Wim Hof experiment, the rat bound experiment, and what happens is the people, and by the way, they had done this injecting endotoxin to 100 or 1,000 people beforehand. This experiment was done to study your immune response, and it had nothing to do with Wim Hof. And so, but then it ended up being a good opportunity. So they knew how people were going to react. And what happens is at the 0 hour, they feel fine. They get injected. At about an hour in, they start to get the symptoms. And then you'll notice their adrenaline starts to spike after you get the symptoms. So you can think of the adrenaline, or at least I do, as a comforting tool.
Yeah.
So how to mitigate that is we bring the adrenaline up first. We bring the comfort level up high first, and then you never get those symptoms, which is that's what their blood work showed, which is amazing. So, I mean, that's how this stuff works. Is you could think of it as adrenaline. Also, coincidentally, because probably they weren't stressed out from any symptoms, that their cortisol was lower, went down lower after it was about a 3-hour period for the thing.
That's really cool. That is, yeah, that's really exciting. I really love hearing that. That is a really fun thing. I am excited about, spoiler alert, I'm excited about January when you're going to come into town.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
We'll try to escape police custody, stuff like that, really make you feel at home. Really remind you that St. Louis is all that you would hope it could be. But,
amazing.
Yeah.
So I love doing these workshops with jiu-jitsu crowds too, because what I've discovered is the jiu-jitsu community is used to a higher level of anxiety than the majority of the world, right? Or is used to mitigating that level of anxiety. So what I did is I developed or these workshops and taught the Wim Hof method mostly to jiu-jitsu guys. And then when I brought it out to the public, or you might say, that I kept having all these people pass out in my classes. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong? Like I had to, get together with the other instructors and kind of figure out what I was doing. But and it was because because jiu-jitsu guys just are used to anxiety. And so what we do with the breath work is we bring you up, we bring you into a fight or flight sympathetic state, and then we bring you back down. So if you've ever had anxiety problems, panic attacks, all that stuff is very related to breath work, but we practice how to get anxious and get ourselves back down. That's what we're going to do in the day. So we're not just going down. Do you know what I mean? A lot of practices are like, whoa, we're just going to get super calm. But what if you're all raised up? Well, so we push you up there first, and then we bring you back down. And oh man, it's going to be it's an amazing day. It's life transformational for people that haven't had that much experience with it. And otherwise, even the advanced guys, I'm happy to go into more depth. We'll go into a few jiu-jitsu positions. I'll show knee and stomach and maybe some ways to breathe in that way and stuff. It'll be awesome.
That is awesome, man. That should be a lot of fun. So with that, when you're talking about bringing up and going back down, would that be the same thought process for the cold water therapy or the cold therapy?
Well, yes, because when you get in cold, anxious happens.
Yeah.
It actually steals your breath away. It makes you breathe shallow. It makes you breathe quick. And a lot of people want to take the Wim Hof method, where it all came from, where the breath work came from. They want to say, well, it's like this part in yoga. It's like this, the Tibetan monks did this and all this stuff. And I'm not sure why all these people are defending these 1,000-year-old credits still. Mm-hmm. But what he discovered is that he really felt like this breath work came from the cold. So when you get in, you start to overbreathe. You start to hyperventilate. Your body wants you to do that. And then you start to slow down. So he's like, well, what if I just took that breath work that happens when I get into cold and do it before I get in? Well, all of a sudden, you're not quite as cold. Well, what if I go do it in my living room? Well, all of a sudden, you just got in the deepest meditation you've ever been in your life, and it only took 2 minutes. And so that was really the birth of this stuff, is so to be able to push yourself up and down, and we'll go through the whole range. So breathing with your nose and your belly, that helps you calm down. Breathing with your chest and your mouth, that sort of pushes you up. And to learn how to mitigate that, and to go back and forth in between those when you need them, is like it's like a super tool.
That's really cool. I'm sure that people listening to this throughout the whole time have been just finding themselves conscious of their breath, because I've been doing it this entire
Yeah.
podcast as you're talking. I'm like, oh, wait, there are different ways to. I always just think of breathing as just breathing, and
Automatic.
there's so
Yeah.
much. There is so much more to it. Just thinking about that has just made just that consciousness of it is really unique. It's really interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Uh, so just kind of going back, would you say, or what would you say the because you're certified to teach like the Wim Hof method, what would you say that was like learning the certification? Was that pretty eye-opening? What was that for you?
Oh, it was wild, man. It was wild. So you do you have to take some sort of classes of it first, so you know of it, and then you do a weekend somewhere, and they really go into the science of it, and then you do a full week somewhere, and excuse me, and you climb a mountain with Wim, and shirtless, and with the rest of the guys, and we do all types of exercises. What was the most interesting thing? One of the things we have to do is there's a horse stance that we do. It's a way to warm up. So you do like half a squat after if you're somewhere cold and you've done like a cold submersion. And if you remember horse stance from like any type of old karate movies or any karate, you got to get in a horse stance. One of my favorite memes is this old guy from Kung Fu that says, oh, the horse stance is too hard, then you need more horse stance. And like, and so we had to do that for a full hour to become an instructor. And so you're just kind of connecting your breath work to your movement. If you can imagine a half a squat, just getting enough squat where you create tension in your legs, it starts to burn probably 30 seconds in, and you're going to be there for an hour. So after about 20 minutes, I'm pretty sure you just turn into a plant or something, because you're just kind of connected to the earth. And they say Schumann's resonance, they say that the earth has a frequency, and our frequency gets off. And that's why grounding is so important, because, it changes your frequency. But some really neat things happen when you're doing the horse stance. And I thought that it was BS, and I thought it was just some hippie stuff. And I was like, I didn't even really want to be involved in people doing that. Like, that's how bad I thought it was. But then once I started doing it and learned about it, and felt what happens when you sort of do this meditation and movement, then it enlightened me to all the things that are out there. I became more open-minded about this stuff. So we're so dull. We think that we are hyper connected because we got all this junk around us, right? But man, you go in a cave for a week, then you're hyper connected. That's what's hyper connected is, because then you're in touch with yourself, like introspectively. Then you can feel your blood flow. Then you could probably heat up one hand at a time if you wanted to. I mean, there's wild connection that we have that we really dull. Sanguru, I like that crazy guy. He says some people choose lethargy, choose to be lethargic, and it feels great. I had a frozen pizza and a couple of some alcohol last night. It feels great to be lethargic. You know what I mean? But we are totally dulling our senses. And so what the Wim Hof stuff is sort of made me open to is how many things are available out there, and where the possibilities may lead. And we can bring that back. And it's been a cool journey.
I really like that. I think that's something unique about probably not just jiu-jitsu. I'm sure there's a lot of other cultures that are like this, but we use jiu-jitsu because that's what we're connected to. That's what we do all the time. You'll find that you don't find as many hard-headed people in jiu-jitsu of this doesn't work or this. They'll try stuff because at one point or another, they walked into a gym and somebody said, hey, I'm going to teach you that hugging people could beat anybody up. And they're like, oh no, like, go ahead, lay on your back. Go ahead, try to hurt me. I'm going to lay on my back. And there was a point that they were convinced that like, oh, this is something that can work. Right. And so it's so much more common for the jiu-jitsu community to be like, breath work. Yeah, I've never heard of it. I'll get behind that. That sounds great. And so
I hope so. I mean, honestly, I don't agree with you there, because I think we're still in the minority, but
Uh-huh.
because I've been trying to, San Diego is one of the biggest places for jiu-jitsu on the planet, really.
Hmm.
And I push these classes, and I don't fill them as much as I think that they, should be filled,
Uh-huh.
So I agree with you, the fact that jiu-jitsu kills the ego for sure. And so, it's been my experience that if you do jiu-jitsu, particularly if you're a black belt, then man, I know what type of person you are in general, and I know we're going to get along famously. You know what I mean? I
Hmm.
just I have a real connection to people that have been doing it for a long time, right out of the gate, because I just know that they're going to be, they've had all that squashed. They don't think that their shit doesn't stink. You know what I mean? They know that someone can take their lunch money.
Uh-huh.
And so it's great for that. But hopefully with this podcast, if you guys help spread the message, we're going to spread the message about breath work being more important than your supplemental training, more important than jogging around the block, more important than supplements. It's number one. It's all you have to do. Pick whatever thing that you think makes you healthy, stop doing it, and see which one you need to do first. And it's breathing. That's
Hmm.
the first one. You can fast for days. You can do all these other things and quit it, but breath work is paramount.
That's really cool. I really enjoy that. So just kind of as we get to the end, I always
Yeah.
finish with the same question. Okay.
Okay.
But
Okay.
before, we're actually going to have a little bit of a callback to some old
Okay.
episodes for people that used to listen to the show in the beginning. We used to do a few different questions. Okay. And I
Okay.
feel like I
Okay.
have to bring one of them back because you are from St. Louis. What
Amazing. All right.
what are your thoughts
Mhm.
on St. Louis style pizza?
Oh man, emos.
Yes, emos.
I'm still addicted to that this day. I found a good crispy crust last night. There's only I want every bite to crisp, from the first corner that you taste to
And
the end.
that's you would be surprised with the amount of people
Yeah.
that I've asked this that have visited St. Louis. Anyone who's
Uh-huh.
a St. Louis native, we
Uh-huh.
just know it's like the Cardinals. You just know you have to say, even if you hate the Cardinals, you just like you're like, oh, I gotta say that I like them. It's so
Right. Don't hate the Cardinals. Yeah.
yeah, with emos, with
Uh,
St. Louis style pizza, you have to know. And so I had to make sure to ask you that before we
okay.
get down to our
I
normal
hope I
finishing. Yeah,
I
so
hope I
you
pass the test.
you passed the
Yeah.
test. Everyone
Yeah.
knows you're cool. So you're in now. Okay.
Amazing. Okay.
So the the question is, we always finish with this. The scenario is
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Um, I am at your seminar, and maybe I am a new blue belt. Okay, we're doing
Okay.
question and answer, and
Mhm.
I raise my hand and I say, Miles, I suck at jujitsu. How do I suck less at jujitsu?
Oh, amazing. Uh, well, you're a blue belt, so you're gonna suck for a while. So, so get used to it, my friend. Um, I have to go back to Rickson and say fundamentals are what are going to get you through the hard times, and breath work is number one. It really is number one, not only in jiu-jitsu, but just in life in general. Rickson would say that anything that you do, if you apply breath work to it, you can improve it by 40%. And I know that's so silly to just throw an arbitrary number out there like that, but I think what he is saying is that you're not going to quite double your proficiency at something, but close. You're going to almost double your proficiency at something by applying breath work to it. So, I mean, that is number one. Learn how to mitigate the nerves. Even when you roll up to a new academy, when you roll up to open mat, your friend said, hey, join me at this gym you've never been before, and we're going to roll for an hour with a bunch of guys that you don't know. If you're going to get anxiety, I get anxiety
Mm-hmm.
from that. And in 10 minutes, you can get rid of that anxiety. Now that takes some practice. That's a short amount of time to do it in, but as you get better at it, you're able to control the anxiety. So first you control the anxiety. Then number two is you control your energy level. We can create an energy reserve that we sort of hold on to and use when we need to. And so that would be the second thing you need to do. You need to learn how to create an energy reserve. You can learn a little bit how CO2 and O2 work and how to make it bioavailable. And then lastly, learn how to recover once you've been smashed down, once you've sprinted and you're exhausted. I mean, I've gone to, I had a great training partner who was 6'10", 250. It's first round of the marathon roll. And one of the things I did, but this is before I knew breath work, he got me on the bottom and eventually I made my way out. But I held my breath or made my breath shallow because I didn't want him to know that he had done something good against me. And that was my tell, is that I was going to breathe like, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So I think we've all done that. And that was literally the worst thing you could possibly do. So after that first round of the whole hour-long day, I went in the bathroom and nearly threw up because I was just so exhausted. He's 6'10". It's fighting a monster. Shout out to Big Jeff. But so you need to learn how to recover. So those three things, they had nothing to do with jiu-jitsu, but create an energy reserve, learn how to recover, and learn how to control your mental state. Man, those things will get you through not only jiu-jitsu, but your whole life.
That's a really good answer. I really have enjoyed this whole episode, Miles. Thank you again for being on the show, man.
Nice one. It's my pleasure. Could I give you one cool thing, something neat that's happening right now?
I would love it.
So what we have thought is happening when we do this type of breathing is that you get yourself into a gamma state. So it's similar to REM sleep. It's similar to hypnosis potentially, but we're not really sure. And some of the interesting things that may happen during similar to psychedelics. So some of the interesting things that happen potentially during psychedelics is you release DMT, dimethyltryptamine. If you've seen the Joe Rogan podcast, you know what it is.
Yeah.
But John Chavez, who wrote a few books, Questions for the Lion Tamer, about finding DMT within us already. So not taking psychedelics, but just releasing the DMT that's already in our pineal gland or potentially created by it. He has a movie coming out by his company, DMT Quest. And I was just up in the Bay Area last week. I did the breath work in a clinical setting with a brainwave scanner on so we could see. And then they put the brainwave scanner on and they inject you with a bunch of gel and stuff. And they were like, all right, now go to it. And they're scanning my brainwaves. We did my brainwaves just sitting there for a little bit. And then they wanted me to do the breath work. And I was like, man, could I get some music or something? Like it was for this documentary. So they had the lights on and stuff. And they were like, no music. Clinical setting, we got to see what the breath work does to you, to your brainwaves. So we don't have all the data yet, but this documentary is going to be coming out soon. I can tell you that I did 20 minutes of breath work. I've been practicing a lot. I'd been staying very sharp and making sure that I was able to do this. And I really got in a wild state. And I did some of the regular Wim Hof stuff. I did some of the power breathing, and I got in an absolute electrified state and full hallucinations. All this stuff happens. It's amazing. And full body electricity. And there were this techs who had done this a lot. It wasn't the doctor, so it's not conclusive results, but these techs that had seen this a lot and done this a lot were astounded. And they said that they hadn't seen, brainwave action like that before after I was done with the breath work. So we're really excited to find out the results. We should get them next week. And if it looks good, they're sort of going to compare my brainwaves after doing the Wim Hof method to what people's brainwaves look like after doing psychedelics. And so we're going to see if there's any correlation, and that's all going to be in the film by DMT Quest. You can go to dmtquest.org and check out the trailer. Might be up, but Wim Hof's going to be in it. Dennis McKenna is in it. Interviewed a bunch of big names and scientists are back in this. So it's all about the science. We're trying to figure out if these mechanical patterns, this mechanical method, what exactly it does to you chemically. So I'm super excited to be a part of that, and I can't wait for that to come out. I hope your viewers dig it and you guys check it out.
For sure, we'll definitely check it out. So it is called DMT Quest. Is the
yes,
would be okay, and then you'll be able to find the documentary there. What will the documentary be on?
Find it all. So it is about psychedelics.
No, versus, I mean the documentary be like to watch it on.
Oh, that's a great question. For sure it'll be released. Some links will be released on dmtquest.org.
Okay.
So we'll be able to figure it out then. But he's been working on this project a while. He is a science nerd with all this stuff. So it just research paper after research paper he goes through and just trying to figure out where it is. We've heard maybe that you get DMT through the lungs. Is it coming from your brain? Is it coming from the pineal gland? It's all up in the air a little bit. That's what we're trying to figure out. But once you are able to sort of really gain this type of control with a lever, then we're on to some pretty exciting things after that is what we're capable of. So man, the magic is happening, brother. Thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks again for being on the show.
I'm honored to be here. Look, you guys are doing great stuff, and I love your principles of the way that you're teaching jiu-jitsu.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And that is the episode. That is the Miles Lukas episode. I really enjoyed this one. This was a really fun, unique thing. This is something I don't think I've ever gotten to talk to anybody about in jiu-jitsu. And it was unique. It was something that I guess I never thought of. Obviously, I watched Choke with Rickson Gracie. Who hasn't, right? If you guys haven't, you should check that out. I think it's on YouTube and stuff. I think it's free. Absolutely just super fun watch. But and he talks about breathing, and you do often hear people say that Rickson is one of like the biggest proponents of breathing for jiu-jitsu and how important it is. And I just love to get somebody that has a different perspective on that. That would be an expert in that, really, and an expert in something not a lot of people are an expert in. So that was a really fun episode to get to record. If you guys are, you have anybody that maybe is less heard of that you think would be a unique episode, you think would be a fun episode, just somebody who has a perspective that we may not have heard. When I say we, I mean me and the listeners of the show. Maybe somebody that has that perspective. I think I would love to hear from you. Send me an email, josh@simplifyingjujitsu.com, or send me a message on Instagram @thejoshmckinney. And we can get these people interviewed. Also, if you guys follow me on Instagram, you've seen I've been posting a few times this week, just looking for topics for my solo episodes. I think it's really nice to know what you guys want to hear. And so again, if you guys have any topic on an episode that you want to hear about, even if it's something that I am not an expert on in jiu-jitsu, I will do my best to bring on somebody who is an expert in it, or do my best to research it and kind of give my perspective or my opinion on that topic, whatever that may be. And so that is what I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you guys are staying healthy. It's getting cold out and people are getting sick, whether with COVID or whatever. There's just being sickness going around. And so I hope you guys are staying healthy. I hope you guys are taking your zinc and vitamin D and vitamin C and all the other things you're probably supposed to take. That would be an interesting episode. Just thoughts on supplements for jiu-jitsu. I have a few that I take. They're all steroids, but no, I'm just kidding. But maybe that would be a fun episode to do. I think that might be something that people would enjoy. Regardless, I hope you guys are staying healthy. I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. And most importantly, I hope that you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu.